If I could get away from multiple games that I play only working on Windows, and like genuinely right now, if I could get away from that, I would switch on my personal computer.
Maybe it's time for a Linux challenge again.
Another one?
Maybe it's time. I keep telling myself I'm going to wait for SteamOS. Like and it's coming. Like, they have an installer that is now validated for non-Valve handhelds. And it does work on desktops as long as you've got a compatible desktop.
Linus is at it again, talking about doing a Linux challenge. And it brings up an obvious question. Can you escape the Microsoft Windows hellscape and switch to Linux too? It's a fantastic idea, and it really boils down to finding the right Linux flavor, what we call a distro, and then getting straight into what matters most: gaming. Sounds simple enough, right? If Linus, the guy known for dropping expensive tech, can do it.
We're just going to skip to cracking it open. Oh, shoot. Oh. It's fine. Ever made things better rather than worse? Pretty sure. Oh my God. Hold on, David. I'm going to need to step back a little bit here. Oh, okay.
You get that on camera?
Yeah. Don't worry. I got this. I promise not to drop this monitor. Okay. So what are we looking? Ooh. Boy! I promise not to drop this monitor.
It can't be that bad. Now, Linus did mention on stream that SteamOS is making big strides, and while it's impressive for handhelds, a lot of Linux newcomers mistakenly think that it's a direct desktop replacement. While SteamOS does have a desktop mode, it's missing a lot of the things that make a computer a truly multi-purpose machine. You also may find that you run into certain issues like missing drivers, non-functional chipsets, and even problems installing it on traditional hardware. SteamOS is designed for handheld devices, not your laptop or desktop. Sure, if your desktop is a perfect mirror of a Steam Deck hardware, then you might find it to be a seamless experience, but that's rarely the case.
And it does work on desktops as long as you've got a compatible desktop.
The next crucial point is that we need to have a shift in our mindset. Linux is not Windows, and that's perfectly okay. I know it sounds obvious, but it's vital to make that distinction. You're accustomed to Windows experiences, and that won't be the same on Linux. And that's not a bad thing. I've even seen comments on my own videos where that's pointed out and raised as almost an argument to deter people from switching. But it shouldn't be seen as a barrier. We're all familiar with macOS, even if you don't use it yourself. The same learning principles apply between macOS and Linux. I remember watching friends and family switch to Mac PCs in the early 90s and 2000s. Yes, I said Mac PC, personal computer.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
Hello, I'm a PC.
We have a lot in common these days.
We both run Microsoft Office.
I also still call Twitter Twitter because X just sounds idiotic. There's a learning curve, but it's not a sheer cliff face. It has handholds, a community of eager individuals happy to help you, and thousands of hours of videos and tutorials. You know Windows because you invested time to learn it long ago. The same applies to Linux when we make the committed jump. Think of moving into a new house. It has the same essential rooms, but the layout is a bit different, and you get to furnish it exactly how you want. So let's start with finding the right Linux distro for you. That's an easy answer. It's Arch, right? Arch Linux and all of its friends. I still stand by Arch being the best. I didn't hold to that opinion until someone in the comment section essentially called me out saying that I was a fanboy. And then I took some time to think about it. And then I found my new daily driver, CachyOS. And then I realized maybe it's okay to be a bit of an Arch person. But can you blame me? CachyOS, which is based on Arch, has been kicking out Linux Mint from the top spot that's been held for years, down the list month after month over the past year. Let's look at a few of the other contenders, though, that are on the board. Linux Mint, an Ubuntu fork that offers very essential stability, long-term support, LTS releases, smaller point-to-point releases with bug fixes and security, often recommended for Windows switchers because of its familiar interface. Pop! OS, similar to Linux Mint, but with additional gaming-focused advancements and a polished, more modern feel. Fedora, which is just like Linux Mint and Pop! OS, which features major updates, often on a 6-month cycle, and its own little forks, with Nabara and Bazite offering cutting edge features. Arch based distros, these include Manjaro, Endeavor OS, CashOS, Gerudo, and many more. Okay, that's horribly painful. Like, I'm sorry. I've been trying to learn how to write scripts, and I thought that I could read them. I also need to learn how to read them because this just feels dry and lacking in the majority of the life and experience. I'm editing this. If you can't tell, I'm currently editing this, and I'm pulling away saying, no, this is just not okay. So we're going to continue on from where me left off, because it gets really, really bad here, and that's not fair to you as the viewer. The next thing that I go off and talk about in the recording that I just wiped out completely is the differences between how things like Pop! OS and or Pop! OS, Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora type systems, and Arch handle updates. When it comes down to Arch, because that's what we were just talking about, it's a rolling release, which means there is no 24.6, 2025 version of Arch Linux. It is just Arch Linux, constantly growing and evolving. It's one of those things that I enjoy as somebody that likes to be kind of on the bleeding edge and has a little bit more of that technical skill to not just wipe out and nuke my entire system. It's just one of those things that I, like about it. When it comes to something like a Debian or Fedora based distro, and the majority of the other distros that exist out on the market, those are going to have their own stable releases and then small little updates, similar to, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11. Get the idea? And then you have updates for security patches and things like that as time goes on. There's a trade-off when it comes to the most up-to-date things, the most up-to-date graphics drivers, the most up-to-date software packages and features. Yes, you get that, but they also can break really, really easily. And that's why people say no, they don't recommend Arch Linux to newcomers. But that's not necessarily a good reason. That's why we teach you on this channel, just like we've been teaching, hey, use flat packs. I'm going to rip away the flat packs. We're going to get rid of those. We don't want to use them. That's one of those reasons why I don't really focus on Bazite as a desktop option and only as a handheld, because it heavily relies on flat packs. It just does with the silver blue architecture. And regardless, why not teach you that there can be an up-to-date system and then how to fix that system as things break, or if there's a problem, or if you have to completely nuke out your entire drive, how to then restore that and make it easier to use. You're not the average computer user. You've been watching a video where a man stumbles through how to speak, and you still want the information that's there. You got far enough to where he gave up on editing his own video. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. How about the Windows bar that's down there? Yeah. I also don't want to pretend like, jumping into a 30-day Linux challenge, you're going to completely nuke out your system, because there's just things that don't properly work inside of Linux. I don't have an NVIDIA card. Now that sounds like a great thing, because NVIDIA does not like to play nice with Windows or with Linux. But also, it doesn't play nice with the editing software that I use, which is DaVinci Resolve, and Kdenlive is hot freaking garbage. It just is. So, what do? Well, we slowly grow, we evolve, we understand the limitations. If you're somebody that uses Photoshop, GIMP is not going to handle the workload that you need. They named it GIMP. Krita is fantastic. And just like with my scripts, I've had AI assist me. I write the entire script, and then they fix it, and then I slowly go through and I fix it. And as I've worked on scripts, because I have scripts for other videos that I do, as I work through the scripts and read them and get better and better, I've gotten to the point where AI is saying, hey, this looks fantastic. Maybe try adjusting these things, but otherwise it fits the feel and the vibe. And it's not even correcting them for me because I'm doing better at writing. But that takes time. That takes using that tool for a while and learning the things that you need to learn. You can't interrupt your entire workflow that you rely on to pay your bills by, jumping to a new OS that doesn't have the thing that you need. Just like with Fortnite, I think Photoshop should start moving towards, providing support for Linux. The other reason why I'm here, I can come up with an answer when it comes to DaVinci Resolve, but why go through the pain of that when I already need the operating system just so I can play video games with my wife on, the weekends, because that's the game she plays. It's Fortnite, and I'm not giving up family time because of some type of, methodology or I don't even know the right word, but this thought in my head that, I have to be Linux. That's why I also have been teaching the concept since the very beginning of having a Windows drive, because as Linux evolves, you can replace the things with it. I've had a Linux operating system installed on my computer for over a decade. And as the decade has gone on, I've slowly moved over to where now I only play one video game and I edit in the Windows environment. That's fantastic. That's a massive move. But here's the thing. If you're thinking about going to a 30-day Linux challenge, let's take that into perspective. I got attacked by a gnat. Let's take that into perspective. Let's think about that concept. You are going to be replacing some things that maybe you can't necessarily afford to replace. And that's okay. That's fine. If you're able to do it and it doesn't affect your income, go for it. Have a blast at it. But with Linus having so much influence, and it's fantastic. I am a massive fan of Linus. There are LTT hoodies and water bottles and everything all over my damn, house. I enjoy my LTT. I'm wearing a pair of their sweatpants right now. I enjoy my Linus tech tips. I really do. But do take into consideration, if you're going to be going through this and this inspired you to do a Linux 30-day challenge, understand that there are limitations. But that's something that Linux users have learned to accept or work around. And as that time has gone on, we've been able to replace things. I may find an answer for DaVinci Resolve. I am constantly trying to work on doing that and working with that, because I hear the paid version actually functions with my AMD hardware from multiple people. I can't afford the paid version, so we ballin' with what we got. So if I'm actually going to tell you what a good distro would be to do, if I were to actually give you a direction on what you should do to do a 30-day Linux challenge, I'm going to tell you to go to CashOS. I have found that it is highly stable. I have found that it is very performant. And realistically, I don't want to throw you into the direction of something that's Debian or Fedora based, because they all have their own issues. Linux is Linux. Sure, there are, special fine-tuned features of each independent distro, but Linux is Linux. How certain things are handled is the part that actually matters. And when I find that time after time between me and my friend group, because I'm not the only nerd that I know, we've all been moving from these Debian scheduled release structured environments all over to having Arch as our baseline. Why would I recommend that you go through figuring out and replacing the OS constantly over and over again and learning different command sets and complicating the entire situation when I know where you're probably going to wind up is on an Arch system? It's just where I find myself. That's where we all started, was on these Debian-based systems and Red Hat-based systems. And all of us, between the 7 people that I talk to about Linux that actually play in Linux, one of them being a creator that goes by the name Kleb. I'll probably remember to throw him up right there. Take a look at him. I believe, if I remember right, last time I checked, he's running off of an Arch-based system again as well, because we keep going through it. I'll have to double check with him. I might be wrong. I'm not going to tell you if I'm wrong. I'll throw it in the comments. But like we use these systems, and multiple people in the comment section will go off and say, don't use Arch-based systems, la da da da, or you're trying to throw on your fanboyism, or, you know, Arch is not great for beginners. But then I also have beginners that are replying to them, and nobody wants to say anything back to them. But beginners that are replying to them that say, hey, I started 2 years with Manjaro, or I started 2 years ago with CashOS, or I started with Vanilla Arch, and I've done fine. You're watching a Linux video. You already are too far gone and spent, bud. Give it a shot. Join us. See what you think about it. Give a 30-day challenge. If you have an extra hard drive, roll those cards, and, you know, send out those dice. Roll those cards. The heck? Anyways, you know, take a chance. Give it a shot. If you want to do it, go for it. I have videos on CashOS. I will put it at the end card. The CashOS video. Give it a shot. If you don't want to do a 30-day challenge, that's fine. If you don't want to try it, you're just watching it out of curiosity. Keep watching out of curiosity. That's great. I'm glad that you're interested in seeing what's there. And for the people that want to sit there and like gatekeep this environment, you can fuck off. I try not to curse in my videos when I do stuff like that, but in all honesty, like why? Why are you trying to like gatekeep or talk down to people or discourage them? That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is we're encouraging and being willing to be a handhold. That's why I turned a gaming Discord into an environment where there's gaming and there's also a Linux system, or a Linux side of my Discord, and all of it kind of just merges together. People ask us inside the Discord every once in a while, hey, I'm having issues with this, and I'll say, hey, do that. There was a guy that had an issue where he was trying to figure out where they were trying to, what was it? It was, if their 1660 Ti would qualify as like the new NVIDIA drivers, and like, okay, well, let me figure out what architecture the 1660 is on. Yeah. That's going to qualify as that because it's on the Turing driver set, or on the Turing based architecture. And they're like, oh man, I already installed it without, you know, the NVIDIA drivers. I'm like, that's fine. Here's the commands. Go do it. I'm not going to tell you to read the man page. I'm so tired of reading comments or seeing somebody reply to somebody in Reddit where it's like, here's the answer, and it's the freaking forum post or the man page. Just help them. They're new. They're trying to figure it out. You were new at one point in time too. That's my only problem that I have when it comes to Linux, is that there's gatekeeping pieces of shit that hang out there. But guess what? There's those of us that are here. Anyways, this has gone on far longer than I expected this video to roll. Thank you so much for watching. Don't bother subscribing unless you want to. We'll see you guys in the next one. Links to the Discord and everything down below. Don't be afraid to dive on into the rift. Later.